It's Edge Radio Australia. Time for a bit of community focus, a show that we do so often, quite frankly, about issues that are really have to do with grassroots level of the community, but sometimes things that are much, much bigger and have a much bigger reach. Mm-hmm. And the gentleman that sits across from me here, John Button, you're a man who knows all about that, because I don't think anybody, certainly no one I've ever met, has been so touched in a very, very aggressive and nasty way by injustice here in Western Australia. So we'll jump into the show very quickly, but first I might just do a little bit of a roll call, make sure everybody's here and attending properly, because we've got a couple of special guests and some great new tech too, which is going to help us with the show today. So to my right, great to see you, Dom.
Great to see you, Ad.
Oh, mate, you can almost call me Adrian. You see, you jumping.
Aaron, I quickly
I saw what you're doing there. Well, he may have just given you a preview, everybody, because the next person we're going to talk to over there is Adrian. Great to see you, Adrian. You are seeing all the way from. Whereabouts are you, Adrian?
In Sydney.
In Sydney, fantastic. Now, Adrian's going to be talking about some great tech that is very, it's just intertwined with what we've been talking about with injustice and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
But the great star here, of course, is Helen. Helen has brought along the fantastic knitting to make sure that we're looking good by the end of it. I'm hoping I'm going to get at least some sort of shawl, maybe a tea cozy for my head. Who knows?
The West Perth football colours.
We might have to change the wall then.
That's why I'm doing it, because it's for my grandson.
There you go. All right, well, let's jump into it anyway, because, look, John, we've obviously started speaking before, and we're going to do this in a series, which is fantastic. And I feel so privileged to have you in here. I really do, mate. It just means a lot to me, because many, many years ago, in 1963, you were accused and jailed and given hard labour for a crime that you didn't commit. It took you almost 40 years to clear your name. I just want to throw that out there, because it's just the consequences of poor policing, of bad infrastructure, basically a completely broken legal system. And again, I'm very careful not to say justice system, because I don't believe it is a justice system. No. And the reason we've got Adrian in today is because Adrian's got some fantastic new software, some tech stuff. And look, as a guy who, like me, I struggle to spell IT. So having Adrian there, he'll basically be able to talk us through some of the new tech that's being able to change. It's something he's got there that's going to be able to change the legal system, in my opinion, very, very strongly. So you've become quite an advocate, haven't you, mate? You've taken up, because of what's happened to you, it's made it apparent the level of injustice that takes place. So do you want to just have a few moments to tell us about the advocacy work that you now do?
Well, after finally being exonerated in 2002, like you said, almost 40 years after it happened, I fell in a hole after fighting and fighting.
I can't imagine why, John. Jeez.
I had nothing to do. I had nothing to fight for anymore.
Yeah.
So I'd been watching for quite a few years the work going on in America in particular with the Innocent Project.
Yes,
and I thought, we've got to have an Innocent Project over here. So with help from some fantastic, marvellous people, I did absolutely nothing. But
I'm sure you did far more than nothing, but there we go.
They put together the WA Innocent Project.
Yes.
And all the legal paperwork and corporation, everything that had to be done. And we started the Innocent Project, which after a while we realised we didn't have the expertise or the people to run it. It takes a lot of people, a lot of time to do a lot of reading.
I can imagine.
And we passed it on to the Edith Cowan University.
Right.
And they now run it in Joondalup here under the Salinger Justice Project. And I spend my time now when I can working with the students there on cases.
Brilliant to see. And I'm so, as I say, like, I really struggle for words on this one, because the pride, quite frankly, I'm very proud that I've got to meet such a man, because this is something that a lot of people would be knocked back. This would stop them. Basically, they'd retreat from life. Yeah. And you've turned this incredible negative into a positive. I don't think people appreciate. I really don't think they see how many people are falsely accused, how many people go to jail, to prison, and have their life has changed forever.
Yeah.
Yes. And you throw a little mud, by the way, and a lot of it sticks. And even if you are found innocent or you're long-term, you're exonerated, the reality is that there's still that lingering thing that holds you back in your life, right?
That's right.
So this work that you're doing is very important, and as I say, I think it's important that people realise it's a much, much bigger problem than society realizes. The media do their job at keeping quiet about it, okay, with their relationships with particularly the legal system and the political system, which so many people don't realize how much of the political system is funded by the legal system. Okay, they're very dirty bedfellows. So, all of that said, you've done so much great work here. I want to ask you how you feel. I mean, I don't know if you know what Adrian's been doing in great detail, but as far as new tech, new information coming forward that can actually help with these cases.
No, this is a completely new to me, and I've only just been thinking recently that surely with AI and what I've heard about it can be used. And it reminds me, years ago, I read a book, Who Killed Sir Harry Oakes?
Right.
A true story.
Yeah, well, I've heard the story, but I don't know much about it.
In the governor of one of the Caribbean countries, I forget what, he was murdered. But the author, in his book, set out what needs to be done. And the first thing he said was that we need a police force that we put in control to act on our behalf so that we don't have to go out as vigilante groups.
Thoroughly agree.
And we, the public, need to give them the tools, the physical and psychological tools to do the job we want them to do. Well, that was the first thing he said.
I'm going to agree with that wholeheartedly. The only thing I want to change about that is the term police force. I believe it should be service. I mean, these people are supposed to be in service of the public. They are public servants.
It shouldn't be forced.
It should not be forced in any way, shape, or form. So it is great that there are organisations out there, and there's books and literature out there that can help. But I'm going to throw over to Adrian here because, mate, I want to hear about this AI technology that you've come up with, the stuff that you're working with. And I believe we're going to have a bit of a world first today, and we're actually going to go and do this live. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, it'd be an interesting experiment, actually.
Well, before we go into that, Adrian, sorry to jump straight down there, but before we go into it, how about you explain a little bit about where you come from and where you fit into this whole AI scheme and obviously the justice system or legal system?
Well, basically, my brother-in-law, two of them, were wrongfully accused and convicted.
Right.
And many, many years ago, I was working in forensic investigations. So when I came back from America, just before their trial, we never, had any experience with the criminal system, the justice system, and we saw it unfold. And seeing these two men go to jail for life for something that they didn't do, and so not just myself, but the family, we started researching the case, and the more we did, the more we found all of the evidence that had been ignored by the defense, because they get a dump of terabytes of data, and thousands and thousands. Like I think we had 40,000 pages of documents that the defense lawyers on legal aid had not bothered to go through, and we found a lot of things. Years went by, and when I found out about AI and how it can quickly go through volumes and volumes and volumes of all sorts of different forms of data, I thought it'd be great to incorporate into the justice system, but not just for defense, but also for the prosecution, because the idea would be okay, if we're going to spend millions of dollars to prosecute innocent people and the guilty people are still out there, that's
correct.
Not only we're hurting the wrong people in society, but we're also hurting the whole of society, because we're all paying for it through our taxes, right? Yeah. So I thought that with the AI system that can be more objective and analyze all of the evidence, it will help to prevent wrongful prosecutions, as well as try to solve miscarriages of justice. Cases like John or like Ambrose and Xavier.
Now, on that front, the reason, of course, that Dom and I know each other, Dom obviously came to me and we were talking about your brother's case, which is obviously the same case that Adrian's speaking about.
Yeah.
The thing is, isn't it terrible that the family have to all get together and do the research and do the hard work to actually try and clear someone's name?
Yeah.
And obviously, on top of that, you've got the finances. These things are massively expensive.
Yeah.
So the family's having to band together to try and find the financial resources. Legal aid, we know legal aid's worth exactly what it's paid for. And you, because of that, but okay, so you're going through the emotional stuff, you're going through the financial stuff, and you're trying to protect your family throughout this entire experience, and then you're having to do the research too.
Well, you're going into an area that you've got no experience in, for starters, and dealing with a system that they have all the means at their hands, and money's no object to them.
Yeah.
Where money is object to the person that's trying to defend themselves. So you're straight away up against a brick wall.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of cases where family are fighting fail, and then the person remains in jail to do their term.
Absolutely. And
until somebody takes up the plight.
Of course. I mean, and like that's why there's an expression in particularly the family law system, which is called witnooming. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but witnooming is like literally, this is unbelievable, but you'll find that lawyers who are being paid by the system, who are within the prosecution side or that side of things, they have the financial resources. So what they'll do is they'll do this a lot in criminal cases too, I'm told, but certainly in the family court, they will postpone and postpone and postpone, because witnooming is all about the fact of, remember when all those poor men and women got asbestosis, right? Okay, from the asbestos, they can witnoom all those years ago. So the lawyers deliberately postpone things until these people died, because the case then dies with them. And this should not, I mean, that should not be a saying. That shouldn't be a part of the vernacular of the legal system. That is disgusting. And I'm seeing this happening in the criminal world as well. So it is all about resources. And I look at John and I think okay, you were a 19-year-old kid, mate, a kid. I'm sure, I don't know, but gee, I'm sure you didn't have a trust fund there to prop you up and pay for your legal sort of thing. So where I'm going on this is Adrian is invented a tool here, is developing this great tool that can save, probably, I mean, hundreds of thousands per case, I would tend to suggest. And a great point that he made earlier about the fact that this is about also getting the guilty off the street. This is a tool for both sides. How do you feel about that there, John?
Oh, absolutely. It's something that needs to be done. Even in my own case, as you were talking about, I've been trying for 61 years to get an inquiry into my wrongful conviction.
Yes.
And the last letter I got last week from the Attorney General was, after asking again, he said, John, it's too long ago now, everyone's dead.
Yeah. Well, kind of a little bit like the witnooming we were just talking
Absolutely,
about.
exactly that.
Yeah. We'll just keep getting, look, we'll postpone it until it's not an issue anymore. Now, today we're going to do something very exciting. Adrian, you've got this software that, as I say, will help through the process, and this is working with AI. I have constantly been a bit of basically I'm against AI, because I see so many nefarious sort of things that can be done, some very negative things. But I'm really glad that you're bringing this forward, because over the last few days, a lot of people have been talking about very positive things we can do with AI. And this, to me, is a very, very positive thing. So, Adrian, do you want to just run through, should we do an experiment, or should we have a little live go at this and see what the result is?
Yeah. Mind you, this is not commercially available yet. Yeah, I'm still working on it, right? So basically what I've got is I'm going to be using my phone, because there's a phone app, and then also on the computer, so that whatever we speak is going to be transcribed live on the screen. You probably won't be able to see, because
I can't.
But anyway, let's see how it goes. And just loading.
No problem.
Okay, so we are live. Leah, introduce yourself.
Probably a bit quiet there.
I'm Leah, an AI developed by Adrian to assist in legal and forensic analysis. My role is to bring clarity to complex legal matters, provide insights, and support discussions like this one. It's an honor to be part of today's conversation, especially as we dive into John Button's powerful story of resilience and his fight for justice. Let's make this a meaningful discussion.
Okay, so basically, just for the for everybody to know, I uploaded those 20 pages that were on Facebook,
Right.
and then I also put in the transcript from the first episode that you did on this series last
Okay.
week. But just feel free to ask Leah a question, maybe, or maybe she can ask you questions.
Okay. I'll ask a question.
Sorry,
Leah.
right now. Could not understand what you said.
Okay, Aaron is going to ask you a question.
What are the statistics of police?
Got it. I'm ready for Aaron's question.
What are the Australian statistics of police making false statements in cases, murder cases in Australia?
That's a great question, Aaron. While exact statistics on police making false statements in murder cases in Australia can be hard to pinpoint, studies and reports over the years suggest that instances of police misconduct, including falsified evidence, have contributed to several high-profile wrongful convictions. Cases like John Button's and Andrew Mallard's highlight systemic issues. The Criminal Cases Review Commission, proposed by some legal reformers, could provide clearer data and accountability. This would help identify patterns of misconduct and offer recourse for victims of injustice. If needed, I can look up more detailed reports on this topic.
Please do. More detailed reports.
It's thinking.
In Australia, concrete statistics about police misconduct in homicide cases are limited due to the lack of centralized tracking for these specific instances. However, studies of wrongful convictions provide insights into systemic issues. Misconduct, including falsified evidence, coerced confessions, and procedural errors, has been a factor in numerous cases, such as those of Andrew Mallard and John Button. Forensic errors contribute significantly to wrongful convictions. A study of wrongful conviction cases showed that out of 732 reviewed, 635 involved forensic errors, with issues such as misclassified evidence and flawed testimony playing major roles. Moreover, police and forensic misconduct, intentional or accidental, remains a concern, with cases often involving systemic biases or resource constraints. Advocacy for more robust oversight, such as independent review commissions, is ongoing to mitigate these issues and hold misconduct accountable. If you'd like, I can focus further on reforms or specific Australian case studies. Let me know.
Actually, why don't we get into the specifics of John's case from the information that you have, and maybe touch on the issue of compensation.
Certainly. Let's focus on John Button's case, its specifics, and the compensation issue. John's case. In 1963, John Button was wrongfully convicted for the manslaughter of his girlfriend, Rosemary Anderson, after she was struck and killed in a hit-and-run incident. Despite the circumstantial evidence and his coerced confession, the conviction ignored a key piece of the puzzle. Serial killer Eric Edgar Cook later confessed to this crime as part of his killing spree, which terrorized Perth. John's conviction was based largely on physical damage to his car, blood evidence on the vehicle, a confession obtained under duress. These factors were later discredited. Eric Cook's detailed confession, including facts only the perpetrator could know. Investigative failures, including overlooking Cook's pattern of vehicular crimes where he deliberately ran down women. Evidence supporting Button's innocence was ignored until a formal appeal decades later. It took nearly 40 years of legal battles, public advocacy, and systemic reform for his name to be officially cleared in 2002. Despite his exoneration, the journey to justice exposed systemic flaws in WA's legal framework. Compensation challenge. John Button's battle for compensation reflects the lack of clear legal guidelines in Western Australia for victims of wrongful conviction. 1. Absence of legislation. WA has no formal compensation scheme for wrongful convictions. Ex gratia payments are discretionary and lack transparency. 2. Bureaucratic reluctance. Authorities often resist acknowledging systemic failures to avoid setting precedents for similar cases. 3. Proving harm. Compensation often requires extensive documentation of financial, emotional, and reputational damages, adding to the burden on victims. Recommendations for addressing compensation. Leverage precedent cases. Highlight similar cases in Australia where victims received compensation. For example, Lindy Chamberlain's case led to significant payments after her wrongful conviction was overturned. Legislative advocacy. Push for a statutory framework similar to Victoria's scheme, which provides guidelines and clarity on compensation. Quantify damages. Work with legal experts to present detailed evidence of emotional trauma, lost opportunities, and societal stigma. Public pressure. Amplify his story through media and public campaigns to build momentum for justice reforms. Legal action. If viable, pursue civil claims against specific instances of police misconduct or prosecutorial errors during his case. Would John like to discuss any of these aspects further or focus on specific next steps?
John?
Yes,
John, what are your
I
thoughts
find
on the
the
recommendations I've mentioned? Would you like to focus on any specific strategy for pursuing compensation or reflect on challenges you've faced so far? Your input will help shape the most effective path forward.
Okay.
the most important input is really the
Got it, Adrian? Let me know how you'd like to proceed based on John's thoughts or any new direction. I'm here to provide clarity.
Okay, Leah, stop. Just wait until John speaks.
the
Understood,
Hang on.
Adrian. I'll stay ready and wait for John to respond before jumping back in.
Okay.
the most frustrating bit is that
Adrian. I'll
there
stay
is
quiet
no
until John is ready to speak. Let me know when you need me to jump in again.
okay, the most frustrating bit is that there is no transparency in how the government comes to their
I understand
conclusion.
how frustrating that must be, John.
Sorry.
Deeply unfair to face such hurdles
Leah, stop.
after everything you've been through.
Stop.
If there's any way I can assist further, whether it's
Okay. So what happens is that this latency, right? So
Mhm.
once he hears the voice and then there's a space, he thinks that he has to answer. So when I do the signal, then speak, right? Let's try it. Okay. Let's try it again.
The most important part is why the government does not give clear guidelines to their decisions. Why is everything done in secrecy and no one is allowed to know their method by which they reach their conclusions in compensation?
John, that's a critical issue, and you're absolutely right to highlight it. The secrecy and lack of transparency in compensation decisions are deeply frustrating and unjust. Here's why it happens and what can be done. Why the government operates in secrecy. 1. Discretionary nature of payments. In WA, ex gratia payments, like those often used for compensation, are discretionary, not based on fixed laws. This gives the government broad latitude to decide who qualifies and how much is awarded, often without explaining their reasoning. 2. Avoidance of precedent. By keeping their methods secret, governments avoid setting legal precedents.
Mm.
Publicly revealing the criteria could lead to more claims, creating financial and
To be absolutely frank, Adrian, that Leah, your little I don't know, what would you call it? I mean, let's face it, AI creation there has just made far more sense than just about any lawyer I've ever spoken to. Certainly anyone that works for legal aid. So there we go. John, what are your thoughts there, mate?
On compensation?
Well, no, literally on a tool, an AI tool like this that can help with the case.
Well, it's brilliant. I mean, this is just starting off. I can see it in the future. This is going to be a major, or could be a major benefit to the police force.
I agree.
Or according to them, it might be a major deterrent and problem to them.
It's going to take away their little playground.
It really is.
That's my main concern is that, you know, that's how they're going to look at it. It's not going to give them the free space to do what they want to do and how they want to do it. You know, but in seeing what's been going on since my brother's case, and then learning further with John, Andrew Mallard,
so many cases,
Henry Keogh. I mean, we go right across Australia. There's so many of them, and the amount of people that are wrongly convicted that are in prison at the moment, I think it's over 2,000. I think is that correct, Adrian?
It's a lot of lives.
There's about 2,000 cases of miscarriage of justice. These people will probably never be free, and obviously therefore very serious crimes, and they're innocent.
Look, AI is only as good as the information that's fed into it, and that goes with any sort of computer.
That's exactly right.
So, I mean, I'll take my hat off to you there, Adrian, because you've just done something very, very, well, incredibly brave, because quite frankly, you've gone live here with a product that's a prototype. Okay, so, you know, you've got bugs to work out. There's more work that needs to be done, all of that sort of thing. Now, but what we've just seen shows what a progress we've made, honestly. Like I can see this, you know, with basically just a little bit more development, this would become an invaluable tool.
But its interaction.
Yeah, spot on. It really did.
Its interaction was pretty unreal.
And I joke about it, but honestly, okay, a computer just made more sense than half the legal aid lawyers I've had to deal with. Who, and I think this is a bit it's a bit confronting just for a moment there, because the reality is I've spoken to many different lawyers. I've even spoken to a magistrate in the I think it was the Children's Court here in Western Australia, who didn't know the law. And when I'm a layman and I'm having to walk up and actually tell them legislation, actually have to explain the law to a magistrate, can you imagine just how incompetent they are? A tool like this can clear all of that up.
Yeah. One thing I would love to know from Adrian, would the AI be able to read a confession and come up with a clear answer to whether it's false or true?
Okay, so it can only compare things, right? So for instance, if there's a confession, and then there's also medical reports or forensic reports or what that contradict, then it can say, well, there's a contradiction here because of blah, blah, blah. So it's good at comparing and analyzing data, but it can't tell what's true and not true if it's not
the nuances of that sort of
if it doesn't have anything to compare it to, right? So, and that's why one of the things that happen with the AI, and we don't really know why, is that the computer can hallucinate. It can create references when they're none. So we need to know that whatever comes out needs to be checked. So, for instance, if we've done a lot of checks on this just to make sure that, you know, it's 90+% safe and secure. However, we shouldn't rely on it as a lawyer, for example. It can't replace a judge. What it can do is it can be used as an extension of your mind as a research assistant to help you analyze things, so that then you can go and check. Because sometimes he will say something and you go, that doesn't sound right. So then you ask further questions, or you provide additional reports or whatever, and then he will correct itself and say, yes, this is the way that it should be interpreted. So, like I said, it's phenomenal in terms of speed. And by the way, this little experiment that we did, imagine that we're doing things over the airways, and there's multiple people talking at the same time, right? But I can actually do things manually by typing, and then the responses are very accurate and very specific, without these sort of interruptions and things, that we experience in this live experiment. Now, if I was the only person talking, then obviously that minimizes the errors, because when he hears the voice, it stops, and then it listens, and then it will process it and give an answer, right? Whereas in the midst of a conversation with 5 people, it's difficult for it to discern who's who and when to.
I'm telling you right now, 5 people having a conversation. The fact that we're doing it, we're here in Perth, you're in Sydney, we're doing it with, there's a delay obviously in the internet, there's all these sorts of things. To be absolutely frank, that did a sensational job. You're looking at the circumstances. I'm so impressed with it, I really am. If I was in the room, now I've been in courtrooms where a lot of people don't realise this, the barrister is speaking and there's a lawyer behind who is feeding information forward, right? I can see this being a huge
amazing
tool. Oh, absolutely. And I've actually seen this with my own eyes. I kid you not. This is the level of arrogance that you will find in the court system. I've literally been in a court where the people in the gallery have been able to observe that the lawyer that's there, who is supposed to be putting this information forward, and this is no joke, has been watching the cricket on their laptop, right? This is a level of just arrogance that you'll find in the legal system I'm sure a lot of places, but this happened in Western Australia. What I'm getting at is, if you've got somebody there, you've got a system like this, you look at it, when you could access this information so quickly. This to me could do so much. And I'm talking about at the court stage, when you're in there. How about before we get there? How about we avoid getting there?
Well, it's like, this is just the tip of the iceberg of probably what this system can do. It's obviously going to be learning as it goes and progresses and moves forward. And, it can even get to the point where, where there's an interview with a suspect, that the interview can be then put in and the AI can actually see the interview with the suspect to see how the interview is conducted. It's endless, and it was actually quite surprising, Adrian. It blew me bloody away, what you just did then in that short thing, and I can see an amazing scope, can't you, John?
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, this is the start, not the end.
That's right.
And if it's this good at the start, what's the end going to be like?
This is just freaking amazing, man.
It really is. Well, unfortunately, everything's got to come to an end, and that means this show. But having said that, we're looking forward to doing more and more on this series. Coming back, we're going to talk about this. So thankful to have you here today, Adrian, and thank you so much for showing us that incredible tech. Really great. Looking forward to having Helen back in, of course, John back in, and Mr. By the Way Adventures as well. Dom getting in here, and
always a pleasure, mate.
Absolutely fantastic. This has been the end of Community Focus here on Edge Radio Australia.